Welcome to Rock Your Reinvention. I'm Karen Freeland, your guide to ditching corporate and designing a life you love. If you're ready to shift your mindset, boost your confidence, and finally take action on that dream career or business, you're in the right place. It's your time. Let's rock your reinvention. Well, I have a very special guest for you today on Rock Your Reinvention. I am joined by Rebecca Mariuki, who is a sovereign wealth strategist and podcast host, joining us all the way from Kenya. She teaches high-achieving women how to recalibrate their identity, build property-backed income strategies, which I can't wait to hear about, and create sovereign wealth. She believes you can live a life you want, no permission required. I love that. Welcome to the show, Rebecca.
Thank you so much, Karen, for such a beautiful introduction. I am super excited to be in here with your audience and having this incredible conversation.
Yeah, I can't wait for this conversation too, because I just got my first rental property. So I'm a big fan of real estate and I can't wait to hear all your thoughts about this. So before we get there, I would love to know, what was that turning point for you that made you realize, okay, it's time to leave my corporate career?
Yes, so I was in a corporate career for over a decade. I made, in my last stint in my corporate career, I made associate director at a Big Four audit firm, which was quite a big deal. And the pay raise was good, the title was good, I had a big team and all that stuff. And in the first year after I made director, when we were now going back to the normal pay raise cycle, I received a double-digit pay raise, which by all means is quite decent. But when it translated into my bank account, I was like, no, there has got to be a different way to living, to creating wealth, to creating freedom than a double-digit pay raise that translated into $292 in my bank account. And at the time, I was earning over $100,000 equivalent a year. And I was like, the way I have sacrificed time away from my family, really, my values took a backbench when I was climbing up the corporate ladder. My values being freedom, family, fun, travel. And I said, no, I need to start creating my own wealth, because I had spent 12 years creating someone else's wealth, quite frankly. And I think that's when the penny dropped that high income does not create freedom. High income does not create wealth. And that's really where my wealth journey really started to kick in very intentionally.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think when we're in the corporate environment, we can only trade time for money. I'll work harder, I'll work longer hours. But at some point, as you continue to climb that ladder, there's no more hours to give. You don't have anything else. It's like squeezing water from a rock, right? It's just, there's no more. So I love that you had this whole pivot about, what does wealth actually mean?
Yes.
So what are some of these steps that you took? Because I imagine that you didn't just look at your bank account after you got this raise and go, oh, well, I'm just going to put in my 2 weeks tomorrow, right? What were those steps that you had to take to plan that corporate exit?
Yeah, so at the time, I always knew I wanted to not be in a full-time corporate job, just given how much I value time with my family, with my kids who are still very young. I have 3 kids, including 2 girls who are twins, and I really wanted to be able to be in more control of my work hours. So at the time, I already sort of had a 2-year corporate exit plan in mind, but I hadn't really thought through the wealth creation part of it. And that's when I started to really pay attention to people who were already living the kind of lifestyle, not necessarily earning the kind of money, but living the kind of lifestyle that aligned with my values. And one of those people who became my mentors was talking about real estate. And I had tried to dabble into real estate back in 2019, actually into Airbnb. I traveled to Cape Town and I was going for my sister's graduation. Absolutely loved the Airbnb and just loved the concept. But when actually tried to buy the same property, or it was the similar apartment in the same building block, the numbers just didn't make sense. And I'm so glad
Mhm.
I stepped away from that and didn't go into that, close that property deal, because I would have lost a lot of money. So came back to it, but this time it was being packaged very differently. And I started to think about it very differently. So still the same concept, short-term rentals, but now thinking about it, not in the sense I was thinking about it then, that this would be a nice place for us to come and stay in the holiday and rent out when we're not on holiday, but now thinking at it purely from an investment perspective, not as a dream home, not as a place that I would love to host people for kitchen parties, but purely as an investment. And I completely changed the concept, even the kind of properties I was looking at. And this time on paper, it worked. And I went back into the Cape Town market and took down my first property with my siblings. At the time, I thought it was a great opportunity as a family for us to go into. And that is really how I got started and really started to earn income from assets, as opposed to, like you're saying, every single dollar you're earning comes from hours that you're working. Like, you don't want to be 65 and still have to put in hours in order to earn money, which unfortunately is a position many people either find themselves in or have to downgrade their lifestyle on retirement because their pension package is just not enough to sustain or replace their income.
Yeah. And you said something really key for me at the beginning, which was this idea of having a mentor. Because I think most of us, even when I was thinking about starting a business, I mean, that was so foreign to me. I'd never started a business before. My family hasn't really started businesses. Like, I don't come from a long line of entrepreneurs who I could just call up, like Uncle Joe, and be like, hey, how did you do this? Right. Like, I didn't have those people. So I and many of my clients have needed to go out and find a mentor who's, like you said, living the kind of lifestyle that you want, doing the kinds of things that you want to do. Maybe it's not like a perfect apples to apples, but it's pretty close, right? It's the right direction. And then go tap into that person. And I'm assuming you invested some money in your mentor and to be part of their program. Can you just share a little bit about that?
Yes, yes. I actually have been a big believer in mentorship, in paid coaching, because, like one of my coaches say, people who pay attention. All the information I learned from that program, I could probably get in ChatGPT. But when you put a dollar next to learning, you show up differently. You implement, you execute. And that's really what made the big difference for me. So, it was a couple of $1,000. I think that program now is like around $8,000 or so. It was a group program, and it was actually by a mentor in the US, so a very different market. I couldn't find anyone in the African market who was teaching short-term rentals, but I took the learning and then applied it to my market. So did it differently in the sense that I actually started what is usually advised when it comes to short-term rentals is start in your backyard. But I started 3,000 miles away from where I live because that's where the opportunities were. And I made it work for myself and for, the 2-year corporate exit plan at the time, which maybe we'll come to in this conversation, turned into a 2-week exit plan last year.
So cool. And I think you're right. People who pay attention, and free gets you so far. And there is a lot of great free resources out there. So we never have an excuse for not chasing our dreams because we can always get information. But I do think there is that next level that you're able to attain once you really put some money behind it and everybody's got some skin in the game.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you.
So I want to talk about this wealth-backed exit because, I talk about corporate exit strategies all the time, and who doesn't want a wealth-backed exit? But what does that mean when you say that? And why is that so critical for women who are considering leaving corporate?
Yes, and I think we've touched on it in a few of the things that I've just mentioned. But when I was now thinking very seriously about leaving my corporate job, I didn't want to just replace my job with a business that will still require me to work long hours, probably even more. I mean, that's the reality of entrepreneurship. I wanted to have a sustainable plan to earning income from assets. not just from me as the asset, but from other assets that were going to work for me and were going to make my money stretch longer. And that is really what the wealth exit or wealth backed exit plan is all about. It's all about how can you start to replace your income 100, 200, $300 a month at a time with assets that are still going to work for you, whether you are working or taking care of your kids or on holiday. And of course, there is some subtleties to that. With my short-term rentals, there I still have to work actively, but I do have an option of completely outsourcing the work I do, and I'll still make money. In fact, that's the route I took in the first 6 months because my husband was very sick. I had to take care of him. I was a caregiver, and I just didn't have the capacity to run those rentals. So I got a property manager to do everything, and I was still making money, right? An entire month last year, I didn't work at all. I was just solely, taking care of him, and I had already left my corporate job. But I was earning money, which is not possible when you are solely relying on active income, on hours worked. And that was the model that I decided to then go with into my exit. And I'm not saying that, I don't work at all right now. I still work actively, but that income has a bigger purpose. It's not just going into booking a holiday, paying the bills. There's a huge component of it that is going into building this wealth backed portfolio that is going to continue to pay me, that I will also be able to pass on as generational wealth to my children when they grow into adulthood.
Yeah, and isn't that what we're doing this for, right? It's for that next generation. Otherwise,
Yes.
it's like, why would I be working so hard, right? I want to be able to leave that legacy for my family, for my kids. So I think that that's a really beautiful way to think about the purpose. Because I think when I was in corporate, there was a lot of times where I was just working for material stuff. And so I could go on the next vacation and I could say, look at me, I have this Gucci purse or I have whatever, which nobody really cares about anyway. And it's not fulfilling. But that was kind of the mentality. So I think it is important for us to think about, why do we need this money? What is this money going towards? What is the purpose of it?
Yes, absolutely. And I think another truth telling moment that corporate women come face to face with is you work for like 10 years, 15 years, you look at your bank account, you look at the things you own, and you're like, I have put in so much sweat, blood, and tears into this career for what? And that's the universe telling you that it's time to put your money to work for you, not you working for money all the time.
Okay. If you didn't hear that, you need to just like hit rewind, because that right there is probably one of the biggest golden nuggets you can ever take when it comes to money mindset, right? Money has to work for you, not you doing the blood, sweat, and tears for the money.
Absolutely.
Mm, so good. And I'm curious, was there any money belief that you had to unlearn from your corporate days in order to succeed as an entrepreneur?
So many, so many. I think the one that stands out the most right now is the harder I work, the richer I'll become, which we know in reality. I mean, we know as corporate women that that's not true. There are so many people who work hard, police officers, people who work in hospitals, nurses, and they're not necessarily rich because they've worked hard. And I think it took a while for me to understand that it's smart work, not hard work. And it's something that I have to keep reminding myself, even now, because sometimes at the start, especially, I used to feel really guilty for the money that I was making on my short term rentals. And I would feel, no, I need to be working harder so that I can make even more, or I need to be working harder to justify this money that is coming in. And it's not true. It's just a belief or a conditioning that has been placed on us in corporate by the corporate system to make us work harder and longer hours and to make the corporate shareholders richer. And it's not true.
Ah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for saying this. Cause I feel like I've been saying this kind of stuff for so long. And people are just like, yeah, Karen, whatever. No, that's not whatever. I feel guilty if I'm not working harder. I had one client, she was like, I just want to wake up in the morning and, walk my dog and then spend a little time in the garden and have my coffee and then maybe do like 1 or 2 hours of work and then take a nice lunch break and go see a friend. And I'm like, yeah, you just described my life. And she's like, no way. She's like, I don't know if I could actually do that though. Like, don't you ever feel guilty? Like you should be working harder? I'm like, no. So we have to change these beliefs and this mindset that there is somehow you're more valuable the more hours you work.
Yes.
It's just simply not true. Now, I don't want to sit around on my butt all day and do nothing. That I would not feel a sense of purpose in that, right? That would be too far of a pivot in the opposite direction. But do
Mm-hmm.
I go on vacation and now not bring my laptop and actually unplug? Yes. And that's okay. Right. So I think it's finding that balance for us that gives us a sense of purpose, but doesn't make us feel like we always have to scramble and work insane hours.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, you have hit the nail on the head. I think that's something that if as corporate women we start to rewire, we'll start to think differently about the money we're making in our corporate job. And we'll be able to even accelerate our ability to live that dream life that you have just described without losing income or without feeling like we need to be working hard or feeling guilty when you actually are able to replace your corporate income and work half the time that you worked while you were in corporate and have so much more fulfillment in the work you do.
So good. Oh, thank you. Okay, you've also developed these rich woman codes, and I love the name of that. Can you share one or two key principles that women can apply right now to start creating some financial freedom for themselves?
Yes, I feel very strongly about the Rich Woman Codes because I have literally embodied them, and it is the principles that my clients are living by as well. So they absolutely work. And the Rich Woman Codes is really a framework that embodies really stepping into your self awareness to learn how you are meant to create income, how you are meant to live at your highest potential without necessarily doing all the things that we've done from our corporate conditioning, working harder, grinding. And it's really based on the human design system as well as recalibrating your identity and shifting those limiting beliefs we've just talked about, and then stepping into wealth backed income that is aligned with your human design. So that's what the Rich Woman Codes is all about. I'm curious to know what your human design is, how you maybe have used it with your clients, because that really is the bedrock of the Rich Woman Codes.
Yeah, I'm a generator myself.
Oh, so
Yeah.
you have a life force energy in you. Like you can work those hours, which is actually how the corporate world has been built around. It's been built for generators. And it's unfortunate that, non-energy generators like me, I'm a projector, we leave that corporate or we live in this world thinking that we're supposed to grind, grind, grind when our best work comes from very short bursts of time. Doesn't necessarily mean we shouldn't work long hours, but when you understand that, you know that your best work is going to come from like your most optimal 4 hours a day. And how can you maximize that? And how can you also share that with, generators like you? Because we all need rest, right? And so I just
Right.
love human design because there is no design that is more superior. We're just all different. But when you learn to live in your design, it's like someone who is riding a boat downstream and is riding it and it's floating nicely versus someone who is like paddling against waves and working so much harder to get to the same destination. That's what human design is all about.
Yeah, and I think it's good when you know your human design because you can also see some of the challenges or pitfalls. Like, because I can work those long hours doesn't mean I should. And at some point, it's like you're going to get burnt out. You are going to break, right? Generators aren't superhuman. So we still need rest and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So I have to remind myself, like, Karen, just because you could push another hour today doesn't mean you have to, doesn't mean you should. How do
Mhm.
you want to show up in this moment? How do you want to spend your energy? And so I have to like course correct sometimes knowing that.
Yes, yes. Are you a generator or a manifesting generator?
Just plain generator.
Generator. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. But I think it's great. So when you meet with your clients, you actually help them figure out what their human design is as a main foundation, right, of the work together.
Yes, and how they are meant to then create income and use their potential to maximize their impact and income in the world, right? So some women come to me and are like, I do want to do something different, or I want to start planning for life after corporate, right? You're not going to be in corporate forever. So you might as well start thinking about it now. And for some of my clients, it's like, okay, how can you step into more of a guide role? Some people have, channels that are more attuned to creating structure and simplicity in businesses or other people's lives. How can they step into that? While my mani jennies, my generators like you, are more like, I want to build something from the bottom, and I help guide them through that thought process. Whereas a projector like me is more of someone who is meant to guide, who's meant to share insights, not necessarily meant to build something groundbreaking from the ground up, but could very well, and which is what I do. Like, I help corporates who are very well established. I help them see gaps in some of their processes. I go in and speak to management and say the things that other people won't say. And I get very paid well for that. But I don't necessarily have to be the generator or the manifester building a huge, like I work with insurance companies. I don't necessarily have to do that from the ground up to make money and to create wealth.
And I love this because I think what you're also sharing is that you've got a couple of revenue streams. You're not only banking on the short-term rentals, but you've also got this kind of consulting practice that you're doing as well. Is that right?
Yes, so important, Karen. I think that's such an important point you have raised there, which is also part of the convictions in my Rich Woman Codes is you do not need to start a business to successfully redefine your life outside of corporate. I think so many people get into that. I don't want to call it a trap, but they get into that thought pattern. And then when it doesn't really work out, they then either go back to corporate or they're like, okay, maybe this life wasn't for me. And then they just default back into the typical 8 to 5 and are unhappy. For many people are unhappy in corporate, right? There's so many studies that have come out recently showing like 85% level of unfulfillment, which is crazy. And so that is why, for me, I was very intentional from the start about creating a consistent income stream right from the get go. I did not want to rely on business, which is up and down. Eventually, right now, I have clients, but I really wanted to leave knowing that I did not have to step back into corporate if I didn't want. And that's why I stepped into consulting, but it's also aligned with my human design, right? So it
Yeah.
that's also the reason why it has worked so well, because I understood my design and I really allowed myself to step into that without feeling like I have failed because my business is not, the one that's replaced my income. And that has allowed me to further continue to grow my short term rental portfolio. So, right now, we're just about
Mm.
to do a refinance on one of the properties, unlock cash so that I can buy the next property. That wouldn't have been possible if I didn't have this consulting income come through. The banks
Yeah.
will ask you where your income comes from. And if you don't have consistent income coming into your bank account, you're in trouble, which is why, as entrepreneurs, it's really important to pay yourself and, put in those systems if you want to build wealth, especially through real estate.
Yeah. And even before my husband left his job, because he's an entrepreneur now too, he started his own electrical business. I was like, we got to get our first rental property because if you leave, I'm like, the bank is not going to give us money to go get a property without some W-2 income. And so we made that move. And then once we had everything locked in, I was like, okay, now you can leave.
Smart move.
Yep.
So smart.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think just, for people considering leaving corporate, it doesn't have to be a one size fits all. You don't have to necessarily start a business and you don't have to have only one revenue stream. There is no shame in having two or three things, right? Like get paid to speak. I have my book sales. I have clients who hear the podcast and then sign up to coach with me, right? There's a lot of different places where I'm able to get income to have, and obviously now the rental property too, right? To keep myself that lifestyle that I want to maintain.
Yes, yes. And just something that has come to, especially if you're multi-passionate, like you don't need to
Yeah.
beat yourself up for the fact that you are pursuing all these different income streams. And some might work, some might bloom later, some might come burst up immediately. That's okay. Just keep going. It does not mean you have failed, which I think is something that I felt a lot when I left my corporate job and thought that my coaching business would be the thing because I saw other entrepreneurs celebrate that a lot. But everyone's path is different, just like everyone's human design is different. And I think it's just important for us as women to own that and be okay with it. Like you've said, book sales, coaching, and be okay also if opportunities that are different to what you imagined come up. Like, don't say no because you're like, no, I got to make money from my business first,
Yep, totally. No,
Yeah.
a great point.
Yeah.
So for that woman who's scared to leave her high-paying job, what is the first step that she should take today to make that a reality?
Such an important, good question. I would say the first thing is increase your level of self awareness. Know yourself, because the person who knows themselves is the person who is really going to thrive in an environment like self employment where there are no corporate guardrails, no accountability out there. No one is checking in on you to see if you've done the things you've said you're going to do. All those characteristics come from knowing yourself, knowing your blind spots, knowing your strengths, your superpowers. And that is why I absolutely love human design, because it has done that for me. And when you know yourself, you're able to put in the necessary things in place so that you do not fall prey to your self-saboteurs, for example. So I would say really that's the first place to go. And then you can start to now explore what is possible outside of corporate and start to really put yourself out there. And don't forget that the ultimate goal is not to replace your corporate income with another income stream. It's really creating wealth. That is where true freedom comes from.
Oh, well said. Thank you so much. This has been amazing. And I'm glad that you also brought up knowing your self-sabotaging behaviors there, because I think self-awareness is not only in like, oh, what do I like, but also how do I hold myself back and being aware of when you shut down or you procrastinate or those other things that are going to prevent you from moving forward. And when you know that about yourself, then you can overcome it.
Absolutely. Oh, yes, absolutely agree with you. It is the best thing you can do for yourself. And I think there's also a movement. Like I see a lot of people talking about different self-awareness tools out there, different conversations that still boil down to this whole concept of self-enlightenment, self-awareness, because like I said, the person who knows themselves is the one who is able to conquer and go the furthest. We are our greatest enemies, but we are also our greatest solutions.
We are, for sure. So good. Thank you for being here today and sharing your wisdom. If people are like, I need more Rebecca, how do they learn more about working with you?
Yes. So I have a private audio training series. It's called The New Economy. It's really for the woman who, like you mentioned, Karen, is thinking of life outside corporate, is trying to imagine what success could look like outside of, climbing the corporate ladder, and doesn't necessarily want to start a business. So if you want to learn the steps to doing that and being able to create that freedom or that option, not necessarily submit your resignation letter. But if you do want to create that option of a life of income, of wealth and freedom outside of corporate in the next 12 months, then definitely listen to The New Economy, which you can download and access. Get your private link at richwomanrevolution.com/podcast.
Oh, we will definitely have that link in the show notes as well. So make sure you go check that out. Thank you again, Rebecca, for being here. And I think we all want to go tap into those rich woman codes, because who doesn't want to be a rich woman?
Yes, a rich woman for life.
Woohoo!
Thanks for tuning in. I hope you're inspired to take action by committing to one of the tips or strategies we talked about in today's episode. If you want more accountability and support, I've got your back. Book a complimentary Empowered Exit Strategy call today. Visit KarenFreeland.com to learn more and book your 45-minute session. Until next time, stay fabulous.